CGI Thomas and the Magic Railroad.
Well done, Thomas!
Buy it now on VHS and DVD.
Thomas and the Magic Railroad. A movie that, despite its convoluted plot, oversaturated cast, and minimal screen time of its title character, I was obsessed with as a kid. So much so that I actually brought my VHS copy into school one day so that the entire class could watch it on one of those wheel-out TVs. And since then I've had a very turbulent relationship with the film. I've made countless videos on it, and even had a poster of it at one point. Okay, maybe more than just one poster. When it comes down to it, I love Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I'm fully aware of its quality, or rather lack thereof, but this movie is one of the most rewatchable things of all time for me. As a Thomas the Tank Engine movie, Magic Railroad fails at understanding the fundamental appeal of the franchise, and what people actually enjoyed about it in the first 5 seasons. I'm not even talking about the whole magic element here, or the realism. I'm referring to kids just liking talking trains with faces. That's why basically anybody watched Shining Time Station, and whenever there was some kind of compilation release of kids shows, you can bet your ass I went straight to the Thomas episode. So imagine the audience's shock when they go to watch a Thomas the Tank Engine movie, and they get this.
Beach, that's it! That's it!
Thomas the Tank Engine is in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, a 90-minute movie for 11 minutes. But, despite all this, Thomas and the Magic Railroad manages to create one sequence that is, in my opinion, one of the best in the entire franchise. And that scene is through the magic buffers. Before we sink our teeth into this scene, let's go over the bare basics of a film structure. We of course start with the beginning, establishing the world and characters that we're going to be following throughout the film. Then we get the inciting incident, or in this movie's case, the incidents, with both Diesel 10 telling James and Thomas about his plans to destroy Lady, and then the scene where Mr. Conductor starts to lose his gold dust. Things get a little bit complicated when it comes to this part of Magic Railroad, because we don't find out about Mr. Conductor's gold dust crisis until the climax of Act 1, which if you ask me is pretty obviously the attack at the sheds. We then get more obstacles with Mr. Conductor being lost and the engines worrying, and then we get to the climax of Act 2, which is the bridge scene with Diesel 10, and it's at this point in the film where we get to the midway point. More obstacles come our way with Mr. Conductor not remembering the riddle, and then we get to the disaster, which is the scene where Junior gets thrown off the windmill and lands on Diesel 10's roof, essentially being trapped there because of his lack of gold dust as established before.
And I've used up most of my gold dust too.
And it's at this point right here where we get to what is, in my opinion, the best scene in the film. So, let me set the stage. Junior is now completely MIA, Mr. Conductor is completely out of gold dust, and the magic buffers have now been located by Splatter and Dodge, and in turn, so is Diesel 10. Meaning Lily is stuck on Soda with no way of getting home, and on Burnett's side of things, he's now aware of his granddaughter not returning from Shining Time, and now more than ever needs to know Lady's special secret. This part of the film is what we like to call the dark night of the soul, or more simply, all is lost. All of our characters are at their absolute lowest, with seemingly no way of getting more gold dust and getting Lily home. And this is where we get the sequence in question. The first scene in this sequence is a conversation between Lily and Mr. Conductor, two characters who up until this point haven't really shared all that much screen time together. Despite this though, I really love how Mr. Conductor is trying his best to cheer Lily up. Like I said, this is the low point for our characters, and even though Mr. C is losing energy, he's doing what he can to cheer her up. It's nothing huge or anything, but it's nice. And this is where I would like to bring up a deleted scene that in my opinion should have been kept in. Take a look.
So you really do love Junior, don't you?
Yes, even though he makes me mad sometimes, but that's what families are for. Someone to be there for you in the bad times as well as the good. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
It's a relatively minor scene, but I feel like it works really well, especially given the fact that he's telling this to Lily, who up until this point, especially in the work print, hasn't really had the best time with her grandpa. And so Mr. C's words probably helped her quite a lot. Anyway, in the final cut, this scene is the two of them discussing how Burnett has been to Soda before, and that it's only a matter of time before Junior grows as weak as Mr. C, adding a ticking clock element. We then cut back to Patch and Burnett, where they're discussing Lady's importance to the Magic Railroad. And while the human scenes in this film are extremely mundane most of the time, this scene really adds more tension to the plot. And it's one of the few times where Peter Fonda's acting really benefits the film in my opinion. That hopeless nature conveyed by not only him but Patch too really helps solidify the severity of the situation. And the thing is, it's a really well placed scene that was nearly ruined in the final film. You see, in the original work print of this movie, Lady's entire reveal wasn't going to be until the 1 hour mark, with it being this big reveal that changes everything. And while I understand what Brett was trying to do here, the reveal falls completely flat in my opinion. And it's not because we haven't gotten enough of Burnett and Lady's backstory, because God knows we got enough of that, but it feels like such a duh moment in the film. Like, we know this already, we've known this for a while now, and to have it be revealed less than 20 minutes before the credits roll in a 4-minute uninterrupted scene is just so baffling to me. Anyway, leaning back into the final cut, one of the main things that carries this entire sequence, especially for the Dower moments, is Hummy Man's impeccable score. This transition between the Burnett and Sodor scene always gives me chills.
And I need to know it now more than ever.
Because of Lily?
Yes, because of Lily.
So, Thomas, we must get Lily back to her grandpa now in case Diesel gets rid of the railway.
And here is where I get to talk about Thomas's characterization, and why this scene is a perfect Thomas scene. For one, despite Magic Railroad not being canon, I love how Thomas is characterized here. He's definitely more of the Britt Allcroft Thomas here, but he feels very reminiscent of his Season 5 self. My mind immediately goes to the scene where Junior gets flung from the windmill and Thomas is completely unbothered by it. That is something he would do 100%. But at the same time, we get to see that empathic side to him, where he wants to help people in need like in Thomas Percy and Old Slowcoach, and later on in the series in Hector the Horrid. And when Thomas is asked by Mr. Conductor if he can take Lily through the magic buffers, he is extremely hesitant at first, which is completely understandable. I think anybody would be. And the thing that I love the most is when Mr. Conductor reassures him that he's a really useful engine and he sees Lily smiling at him. And it's only then that he agrees. It really does reinforce the point that Thomas has grown as a character since we first saw him in Season 1. Imagine if for whatever reason Magic Railroad took place in Season 2. You and I both know that Thomas would have straight up refused to go through the buffers. Going back to the because you're a really useful engine scene, I just love it so much, man. Call it corny all you want, but seeing one of the Thomas narrators talk directly to Thomas and reassure him that he's a really useful engine will always give me chills. And that little bit of music they play as well, damn, this hits hard. The following scenes where Thomas is on his way to the buffers are pretty great as well. I used to say that the sets for Magic Railroad were trash, but I don't know what I was smoking back then. The night scenes, especially in this movie, are so well done. Well, except the talking tumbleweed. As much as I do have a soft spot for this film, I cannot justify the sentient rabbits that can write notes, the flower phones, or talking tumbleweed. I draw the line there. After that though, we get to the main event. Let's talk about the CGI Thomas. I honestly kind of love him. He's such a little bean, and Eddie Glenn's voice for Thomas just makes him even more adorable. He's just a little guy. Anyway, back to the scene. I found the Magic Railroad to be completely fascinating to me as a kid. I know it's based on the Tunnel of Love in Ukraine, which is gorgeous in its own right, but the Magic Railroad was something that I could never really wrap my head around as a kid. Obviously now I attribute that to bad writing, but I digress. We then get what is probably my favourite scene in this sequence, the coal truck scene. The coal truck scene. This scene is such a simple little moment, but I adore it so much. So, Thomas starts going through the Magic Railroad, and even though he's undeniably worried, he presses on as he knows this is the only way to get Lily home. And when they're about halfway there, Thomas notices a truck that he had previously shunted into the buffers earlier in the film. And without hesitation, Thomas goes back to collect the truck. And what I love about this is that Thomas has no idea that special Sodor coal is the coal that Lady needs. He's just taking the truck because he knows it's the right thing to do. Like I said, it's such a simple scene, but it echoes Thomas's character so much. And then we get the scene that everyone knows and loves.
You're a really useful engine, Thomas.
Not only is that little bit of music a callback to the song that plays during the movie, it's also a little nod to fans in reference to the original version of the song from Season 4. And once again, Lily telling Thomas that he's a really useful engine and him smiling afterwards looking so proud of himself is such a goddamn wholesome moment. It's like calling a dog a good boy, you know? He's just such a little goober. Look at him, he's so cute, man. Now, I want to make this very clear. I'm not trying to say that Magic Railroad is a good movie, because it is not. Thomas isn't an active participant to the plot of Thomas and the Magic Railroad until 1 hour in. But just because a movie is shit doesn't mean that it can't have good scenes. There's good scenes in many different bad movies. I just wanted to highlight one that I feel captures the essence of Thomas's character perfectly. I'm not saying that the movie does, because we all know it doesn't, but Thomas's characterization in this movie is something that I will defend until the end of time. And there is nothing anybody can say to change my mind.